on a Zoom. I'm losing it, guys. Like, I'm at a point I'm just gonna resign. I can't. My mental. I am losing it. You're like a dead person. You're physically there, but your mind. I constantly think about the work. And looking back, I'm like, such a ridiculous thing. But it was like, I'm a failure. I made the biggest mistake in my life. You got a brief, or bring that brown person in, or black person in, or it was more like, it's Diwali, or it's Eid. You know, like, it was very tick boxy versus very impactful. And then that was one of my questions to my boss. Is this a thing? Like, if you want me to come and be the PR person, I don't want this job. I want to make money out of this, create something. And I think that's where brands make mistakes. Let me call that brown person there. Is this said okay? But it's, I don't know, I'm not black. But you know, you're BAME, you're, you know, you people of color, you're all the same. Or you need that in-depth knowledge of people. And that's what we do with Unite. We made it. Team grew to 22 last year. Operationally, we built the most efficient team. We went from having like 2 clients to 50 clients. Fastest growing in OMG into a specialist. If I could go back, I would see a therapist or someone, because looking back, I just think it's ridiculous. It was just a bloody job. Hi, this is how I became Serhat Ekinci, Managing Director of OMG Unite.
This guest came from humble beginnings in Turkey, Istanbul. Not concerned with a glass half empty, but rather a glass half full. Working hard from the age of 9, he knows the value of hard work. He now runs a whole department where diversity proves its worth. Making work that uses data, showcasing the power of inclusion. Leading a team that really represents the world with no falsehoods or illusions. So if you don't know him today, well, we'll shed some light. We're here with Serhat Ekinci, Managing Director of OMG Unite.
I am loving this. I want that as well.
Yeah.
That was wicked.
Well,
nice.
People keep saying, I want that framed, but it's a video. I guess we'd have to do a framed video of Ash saying,
NFT.
any point.
NFT, yes, there you go, yes. I think I might, you can put the words and create like frame it up and put it on the wall. That was wicked. Like rhyming and the meaning. I loved it. Nice.
So that's a little preview for people watching and listening of what is to come. The story of Serhat is an eventful one, that's for sure. Yeah. From, as Ash said, from working from 9 years old, we're going to tell your story from childhood to where you are now, Managing Director of OMG Unite. Can you tell us, for those who don't know, what you do in the company and the scale of it and the context of it? Just a brief summary before we get into your story.
So I head up an agency which is part of Omnicom Media Group, specializing in inclusion-driven marketing. So we do creative and content creation to media strategy, planning and buying.
What kind of clients?
Charities like NSPCC, Childline, government, to Barclays, Sainsbury's.
So you were playing a big role, which we'll get to in the middle of COVID with government communications.
Yes.
Things like that. We will get to how that experience was.
Yep. Time that I'll never forget.
Yes.
Yes.
And just who is OMG for people who don't know? What's the scale of that company?
OMG is part of Omnicom Media Group, Omnicom. So we are what we call the media arm. So we've got 3 core agencies, OMD UK, which is made up of 2 agencies, Arts and Science and PhD. And alongside that, we've got a lot of specialist agencies like Unite, Drum, Fuse. But to give you a scale, we're one of the top, I think we're the second biggest in the world as a group.
In terms of billings, roughly, do you know?
I think in the UK, I'm going to have a guess, but I think it's 2 billion in Europe, I think. I might be wrong. I don't know the exact billings.
But we're in the hundreds of millions. Yeah. Well, we're in the billions.
Yeah,
at least.
we're in the big boy numbers here.
It is significant. And then the clients ranges from McDonald's, Channel 4 to Sainsbury's.
So that's the companies.
Yep.
Now, Mr. Serhat. Let's take it back.
Tell us where your story begins.
I was born and raised in Istanbul, Turkey, to a Turkish and Kurdish family. Grew up in a place where you would call very rough, and you know, where drugs, fights, and it was part of day-to-day life. But in a way of not for fun but survival.
And the way that you ended up in Istanbul goes back to the story of your parents. Tell us
Exactly.
about how your parents met and the situation they were in when they wanted to get married.
Yeah, there's again, they're my admiration in everything I do. But they used to live in a village in the east part of Turkey, a place called Erzincan. So they fell in love, but back in the old days, you had to pay dowry. So my
What does that mean?
So to marry a girl, you would have to pay loads of money to the parents as a way of thanking them that they've raised such a beautiful person, and I want to pay forward.
And when you say loads of money, in today's money, what would that be?
It depends on the person, but I would say at least 200-300k.
Well,
200-300.
Yeah, in some
Wow.
cases. Not at least. I think at least is the wrong word, but it can be around 200k
So
to
that's a lot
of
UK
money.
standards.
This
yeah.
is not just a couple of quid.
Yeah.
No.
£300.
So they want it. So they usually want land, a lot of gold,
Mhm.
which my dad had nothing of. As in, even if he worked all his life, he couldn't have made it. So
he wants to marry, your mother,
exactly.
but doesn't have 200k lying around.
No, nothing at all. And I think it's just he was a farmer, right? And I think my dad was 19 and my mum was 17. And they said, you know what, we're not going to be able to do this. So they took literally a backpack and eloped to Istanbul.
Wow.
And think of these people as people who have not left their village. So they lived in a village of, I think, 40 households where literally everyone knows each other or they're related. So they have not had exposure to a city like Istanbul, which I guess is equivalent to London.
I mean, it's the most popular city in Europe now.
Yeah,
maybe
exactly.
similar back then. Something like, how many million in Istanbul?
Well, official figures, I think it's about 20 million.
Comparing 40 households even to a million is
Yeah.
a big difference. This is multi-million popular city they've just moved to. They have to go in the night.
Yeah, they went in night and
Wow.
took a bus ride, and which when I was a child we used to do as well, which is, I think it might have gone down now with the new roads, but it used to be 24 hours on a
Wow.
bus,
Wow.
which to me it was normal. Whereas now, when you travel to work like for an hour, you're like, oh, this is a nightmare. So hence, to me, it feels like a luxury. But I really, really respect their bravery to just leave and start a new life from scratch. One related subject to that is we come from a religion that is a minority in Turkey. It's like a minority within Islam.
Mhm.
So we have different beliefs and ways of living, which is not so much appreciated. So there have been instances where they've, relatives have been slaughtered. So it was illegal to even speak our mother tongue, like literally illegal as a law. You're not supposed to speak it at home or outside. So to come to a city where most people will know you as well. So in Turkey, it's like, even though I was born and bred in Istanbul, if I tell someone that I'm from Istanbul, or if someone asks where you're from, I have to say I was born and raised there, but my parents are from Erzincan.
You have to say that.
It's in a way, in like, it's a bit like your heritage. Where your parents are from is where
see.
you're from,
Yeah.
in a way.
They would see it as you're misleading them if you just said, I'm born and raised in Istanbul.
Exactly. And I guess you could tell, like, especially with my dad, right, is we pop out, like we've got slightly darker skin. Like, you can't get away by saying I'm Turkish.
I see.
So you have to, they can pinpoint you.
So what was that like for you growing up as a child?
Yeah, was there an element of still following your cultural practices, or did you kind of completely wipe it out while you were in Istanbul?
Well, in the beginning, I wiped it out, because I think the society always makes you feel like why it was like a disadvantage or like a bad luck that I was from a culture or a religion that was not seen as forward thinking or that was not appreciated. So, it's a bit like being born in a, I don't know, rough, socioeconomically lower class. And you're like, why me? Why didn't, you always go like, well, why was I not like those kids who've got everything? I think you have that perception. And I think the hardest bit was, especially as a child, to understand, like we had to live in coverings, as in I couldn't learn Kurdish properly because we couldn't speak it. And I think my parents, on purpose, spoke to us in Turkish as well because they didn't want us to have an accent as such, like have disadvantages in life. It might sound really sad, but like my parents used to chat in front of me all the time because I was the youngest and they assumed that I didn't understand things like meaningfully.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you're a child, you won't get it. And
how old roughly are you when they're having these conversations?
I think it was like 6,
Okay.
5, 6, very young. But mentally, I was able to understand everything they were talking about. And like they wouldn't do it to my brothers who were older, like in front of them. But, they would talk about a lot of the problems they have, or like my mum stitching up my dad's shoes, or like I've never seen my dad buy an outfit.
So why was she stitching his shoes?
Because they wouldn't buy, like they would never, they still have that mindset. Like even if you give them loads of money, they'll spend it on their kids, but not themselves. Even now, they'll let their kids and grandkids, everyone eat before they eat. Like I have to force them to sit at the table to eat with us. And in most cases, they'll be like, no, I'm not hungry. I'm like, no, you're going to sit down and eat with us. Just a mindset of like they'll do their best to buy us everything we need, but not to themselves, if you know what I mean.
So what would you hear them saying as a 5-6-year-old?
It could be things like, we don't have, let's say, enough money to pay the electricity. It's gone, like it's very high today. Or they would say, we need to borrow money because we need to buy books for my brothers. Stuff like that.
And what are you thinking when you're hearing this?
I would take it on myself because, I mean, again, I would take it on myself as like, I'm also an expense to them, right? Although I'm 5 and 6, which I think was, alongside my love for cars, stereotypically, was the reason why I started working when I was 9. Because I was like, I'm not going to take any pocket money from my dad. And in fact, I would contribute, like give to my mum. They never asked for it. They never we were never forced to work as such. But I just felt helpless. Like, how can I help at that age?
It's a great thought to have as a 9-year-old. You're not even in the British school system, secondary school yet. You're in primary school.
Yeah.
And you're out. How do you even find this job?
Well, the beauty about Turkey is people are a lot more connected. There's certain areas where it does feel like Britain or any other Western country that people don't know even their neighbors. But like where I lived, we lived in the same house all our lives. So
whereabouts in Istanbul, for those who know?
Place called Güngören, Güneştepe. So even if I go now, when I go back, I was there last week, and you come out, and I love it. That's what I love about it. You start walking, you end up talking to the corner shop where someone stops you on the way. They call you for a tea. So by the time I would say a normal walking distance journey, that's like 5 minutes, it becomes an hour. But you love it when you're away from. When you live there, sometimes it gets a bit too much. You're like, I just
need some milk.
Yeah, exactly. I just want to get a milk. So we had a corner. So just like literally a few buildings down the line, there was a mechanic that's been there for like over a decade, who was a family friend. And I told my dad, I was like, can I go and work there during summer? So you get like 3 months break. We follow the American system. So they asked him, and I remember my first day, I went there. They open at 8, and I went there at 7:30, just like waiting by the door.
Yes. Why?
You don't want to be late. Like that's like I think that's very disrespectful. Like even when I start a new job now, I'll go early, even if I just walk around the area.
So you still do that to this day, yeah?
Yeah, exactly. Even coming here, I was like, I walked and I knew I was going to be early, although bus had like a delay, and I still...
You were here early?
50, yeah, I would have got here 50 minutes earlier, but luckily I had extra time. So I did that for about 5 years.
Oh, wow.
And I loved it. Like what I loved about it was I even joke with my brothers now, like they never worked. And we lived in a 2-bedroom flat and only had one TV, and we slept in the living room with my brothers. As a young person, I would never get the remote. Like you don't, it's just a cultural thing. Like the older people get a prize.
They choose what shows, cartoons.
So yeah,
films.
I used to bribe them because they didn't work. They didn't have extra money.
So you were making money. You had money to pay for a day of the remote.
Yes, exactly.
Nice.
And I loved it. I know it sounds really weird. I was like, I am watching whatever I want today. Just leave it.
So you don't only, you're not just a mechanic. Walk us through the jobs you had as a young man.
So with my cousin, we've done quite a few things, but I'll start with the polishing shoes. In Turkey, we have cafes just for men. Well, it sounds very sexist, but they play card games.
Mm-hmm.
You go around us, like, look at people's shoes. Can I polish it? You ask them. So we went to a carpenter and buy the box, like wood pieces, and made the box.
But you're like, how old at this point?
I think probably 10, 11 or something like that.
Fantastic.
But this didn't last for a long time, but we did it. I earned quite a lot of money, and then someone stole our box. That was another. We got robbed. Yeah. Then we're like, let's just not do that. But we did make quite a bit of money, and the other one was in the market, and that's again very profitable. People don't understand it, but we sold water. So we'd go to the market because when it's hot, when people are carrying stuff, you get really hot and there's no one selling water.
And it can be 30 degrees, 30 plus.
Yeah, it could be 40, sometimes 50 to like that's extreme. So we did that for a bit. And then we had like random ones where we sold copper. So like the buildings that they knock down have a lot of copper. So they knock it down to build a new one. We would go in and take out the copper like cables and stuff, burn them, so get the plastic. And there were places where like metal scrap yards are like.
Yeah.
You buy them in kilos. That was a nightmare job. And like you could make a lot of money, but going through the buildings were not fun.
What were you learning at this time? What was going through your mind? What's driving you to do all this?
I think it goes back to my parents' things, right? Like, as in, I didn't want to have the financial struggles that they had, which I think to this day, even now, is one of my drivers. Like, I don't want my kids to have any financial struggles in their lives. Like, I'm not saying I don't want them to be spoiled, but at the same time, I don't want them to have an issue of not being able to have the necessities in life or sacrifice things that any children should have. So because you grew up in such an environment, you're very entrepreneurial. And I think things like, might sound weird, but buying a chocolate is a luxury as well.
So your brother has some difficult time going through military service.
Yes. And this was one of the reasons why I wanted to move to the UK as well. That where you came from, like where your dad's from, it's like it stays in your ID. Like even if you say you're born in Istanbul, in my ID, for instance, it says where I am from is Erzincan. And to a village, people will know what kind of religion, faith, what's your background. And unfortunately, when you go to military, Kurds and Turks have been fighting for years, and when they know you're partly Kurdish and you're this, you used to get tortured. I don't know now how it is. Instead of, let's say, doing it for 15 months, I think he ended up doing it for 2.5 years. Prison, blah blah, loads of different things. And he lost his psychology, like he lost it brain-wise. Like he couldn't wear anything green for a few years, and to this date he still has effects. Like he does take medicine. But yeah, he created like damaging effects on our family. You know, he tried to commit suicide, even attack my parents. I don't think it was him, so we had to put him in rehab. Like it was very tough time for everyone in the family. Because that's my middle brother, so the one older than me, and he has always been full of life. Like if you saw him, he would bring life to anywhere he goes. That type of person. And you just saw him lose it, like his mindset. You can't talk to him. So those were really sort of difficult times that we don't talk about. And
how did you deal with that as his younger brother?
I cried. I cried under the duvet quite a lot because because of hearing my parents, I always, even to this date, I'm my mum's crying shoulder. Like he'll call me to complain about my brothers. I just felt like they've got enough already. I don't want them to see me sad, and it adds up to, like, it doesn't help to them. It makes it worse. And
so you would hide your crying.
Yeah, especially nighttime. I know it sounds weird. I would say, like, I would do my best not to cry and literally cry under the bed at night because, you know, your brother like talks and he says things that doesn't help, and he might get a knife and, you know, try to kill himself. And you have these pictures in your head like he's on the bulk, and we used to live on the 5th floor, like trying to throw himself, you know, like it's I didn't know how to digest it. It's
how did you deal with it?
How did you get through this?
I don't know. Like, as in, I just live with it. Like I didn't have and my even to this date, I sometimes hide a lot. Like I try to hold it inside, not show it. And that's what I did, I think, when I was younger as well. I just cried at night and tried to be supportive to my parents. Like, even like I remember going to the hospital. That was like a mental health hospital, and when you go there, and it's just like you feel like my brother will not get better here, but you don't have a choice. Like if you keep him at home, he can do something to himself or us and my parents. If you put him there, would it help? So yeah, like military just killed him, and it is quite like as they say annoyingly, like if you don't go to a military, you're not a man. That's the mindset.
So when you're getting to the point where it's your turn, what do you do?
When my time was coming, I was like, I will not do this.
Like, I need to get out. What's happened to your brother.
Yeah. I was like, I need to get out. And financially, we didn't have the means, and so we borrowed loads of money from friends and family to come here to learn English. And I always wanted to as well, but I had never had the chance. So, and I had my uncles here, my auntie, my dad's mother, who used to live in Dalston. So, yeah, I basically came on a student visa, and I said, I'm not going back.
And so friends and family have all put in money for you to be able to come to the UK and study. Exactly,
yeah. Especially for the first stage, as in you have to pay for the course for like 9 months, which was ridiculously expensive. I think it was like £3,000, which is significant to Turkish lira. So just to give you a context, like the minimum or average salary is about 5,000 Turkish liras, which is to 1,000. No, it's like £300
£300 a month.
Yeah,
So this was like they were giving you the equivalent of someone's annual.
Yeah. So we borrow
So
money.
it might be the equivalent of 30,000 or something.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Like
Yeah. Exactly. So it was quite a big commitment, and then.
Did you feel the pressure of that? So
100%, which is why when I came here, I didn't ask them for money again. Like I felt I can't ask them for money because it's really, really difficult.
How old are you at this point in time?
I think I was 20s, something like that.
Yeah, so pretty much like university age.
Yeah. So I basically, there's, and the other story is like I finished high school, and until high school, I was in primary and secondary. My teachers thought I was a maths genius. Like, I could answer question without writing or doing it on a paper. Then I had high school, I lost it. Like going after, chasing stuff and fun and all things. It just, I lost the focus. So I worked for like a few companies there, like in offices, like regional water company, then a market research company. So like for 4 years and stuff after high school. Then my military was coming. And so I need to find a way to get out. So yeah, then I landed here basically with the help of friends and family. And I worked in my uncle's coffee shop. I was washing dishes. Then going to school, which was in Oxford Circus, taking a bus as well as to save money, and that was a nightmare, like a 2-hour journey on a pack in the morning type of thing. So yeah, I did that for a bit. Then I learned to cook, became a chef there, did waitering, and where I probably learned English as well. Then they left, suddenly like sold his business, sold a house, and it was a shock to my system because I didn't earn that much by then to like rent things, and things were expensive as well, even like renewing my visa.
So you had to find somewhere to stay.
Yeah.
But
so
you weren't earning enough for rent.
No. And
wow, what did you do here?
So I became in a way homeless, but I didn't have to stay. I stayed with friends for a few days, but I didn't stay on the streets and stuff. I didn't have a home, and my weekly salary was so tiny after all the expenses, and I had to save money for visa as well. Luckily, there was this, I never forget, like I love him to bits. I think he made a massive influence in my life. Irish guy. So it's weird to say, but I think they also changed my view about LGBTQ community. It was gay couple, whereas in Turkey, I think I had very stereotypical mindset of them. Like there's a lot of discrimination and stuff. It's another story, but basically he said, do you know what? You can stay in my flat. So he had a house. He rented the room to me for 50 quid, which I think it was normally like 100 quid or something.
50 quid a month?
No, a week.
A week.
But it was cheap for what it was.
That's still,
£200 a month.
Yeah, it was. But then I was working in a coffee shop for a year or two. It was very difficult because you work like 12 hours sometimes, and then you go to school, which is 3 hours, and then you take the bus because it's cheaper than the tube. You have no time to sleep. So I lived literally on Red Bull and coffee.
Wow.
Luckily they were free in the coffee shop. Like you could have. I had eye problems. Like it was quite interesting time period.
But all this while you've got the weight of family and friends who've paid for you to be here. You have to make it work. You just got to do what you have to do.
Exactly. You have that on your shoulder, right? You're like, and to this day they still do it, don't necessarily say it. Like my parents won't necessarily say it, but I know, or I feel they expect me to make it. It's almost like you're the superhero that managed to get out of this place. So you got to do and help out. Like you can't be a failure. Like I had moments like where I'm like, what am I doing? I came here to wash dishes, not to disgrace the profession, but it was like, I am literally working flat out, going to school. I am not able to, like, I'm not saving any money. All the money I save goes to either school fees or visa fees. What is this? You come for a better life, but it doesn't feel like a better life. And I think the moment that really helped me was I got sacked from the coffee shop randomly. It was a family-run business after my uncle sold it. I stayed to help them. But we did have an agreement, like unofficially. If I leave, I'll give you 2 weeks notice. You give me 2 weeks. They didn't give me, which they said, oh no, we'll give you. I'm like, I don't want it. It's like you have pride. I was like,
Yeah.
I left and started working in a minicab as a controller. So I learned my English, and a lot of my English I learned in like pubs and stuff versus school. Like I didn't have time to study, and I always hated studying. Then I met Weir, so who was a friend of my ex-teacher. So my English teacher in the language school became a good friend. So she left my school, but then we hang about, and with the crazy times, like going to Pasha, like we were into clubbing and stuff, like a lot. So we do a lot of things together. That's how I met my wife. And I was a bit of a naughty one by then. Initially, my friend, she didn't want me to go out with my wife. She's like, no, she's a good girl. No, I'm not gonna. I was like, can you, I was like, no, I'm gonna be a good, like, I'm not gonna be a bad person and stuff like that. Anyways, we made it up, and then we started going out and all of that. Then I think 6 months later and stuff, we found ourselves planning a marriage.
Wow, fast.
Wow, that is quick.
Yeah, very fast. I think it was like a marriage at first sight,
So you managed to prove that you could be a good guy, and
100%. I mean, it's been 14 years now, so with 2 kids.
There we go.
I think we did all right in that sense. But yeah, then I decided to go to university. So that was, I think, while I was in the minicab, because I was like, I am just going in circles here. Like, I'm not making money. All the money I make, it goes out. Language school, fine. But I'm like, I've learned my English. And I didn't feel like I learned it in the school. It was more like I had to go for visa.
Yeah.
I was like, let me go to, and going to university was like, actually, mostly was driven my uncle as well. Like because he would be like, because he was an immigrant, he had that on his shoulder as well. He had it tough, like very tough. I think a lot tougher than I had it, or these days.
What did he say to you?
He was like, you'll never make it to the office, or even if you make it, you'll be always like low level, because you're not white, you're not British, you're an immigrant, you'll always have an accent, you'll always this.
And what did you think when you heard that?
I'm gonna prove him wrong. That's the thing. I think for me, that's what I do, like, as in how I make myself go further and drive myself. Rather than sitting down and crying about it, I try to turn it into I call it stubbornness. My wife calls it ambition.
If you have goals and ambitions within your personal life, career, or business, and would like to overcome the challenges that you face, inspire people, and get to your goals faster, then a coach might be the right solution for you. Go to weunify.co.uk/coach. Now back to the show.
Anyways, I said, I'm going to go to university.
Prove you wrong. And he's not saying you can't go to the top. He's saying you can't even get into an office. And if you do, you're going to stay at the bottom.
Yeah. You're like, You're not going to, it's like, look, work in a kebab shop or a coffee shop. And I respect him. That's a very difficult job. But it was like, I can't even save money to buy in. If I know I'm not going to be able to, I'm going to end up becoming an employee forever. Like, and it doesn't pay that well. I'm not going to lie. So I said, let me go to university, try it this way.
What did you study?
Financial management and accounting.
Okay.
Because I always liked numbers, and stereotypically, right? Like, my parents they want you to be engineers, doctors, accountants, and stuff like that. Like, no, if you say you're going to be a media planner or a producer, they're like, why? Do a real job, that type.
Yeah.
So I studied it, and I got 2 first. So it was really good results as well.
But how are you going to pay for this? Because the course was going to cost $10,000 a year, because you're an international student.
So I worked 3 jobs. I worked in a place called International Students House, like a hostel, where I did 2 jobs. So the first one's events assistant, steward. Then the second one I got after this was a front desk receptionist and a hotel, like check-in receptionist. Then the other job I got during that time, the usefulness of Turkish only was as a media analyst for a company. So you basically get to read loads of articles, freelance, do it in your own time, study it, like you put like favorability, how do they talk about a brand and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Translate it. I was working as a front desk receptionist, and they knew I was doing that as well. Then I was doing that at the same time. Because at the front desk,
you get to sit there and read
jobs,
your articles.
Yeah. And they knew that as well. Like it wasn't like a because it's the hostel that I work for is a social enterprise. It's like not a profit-driven company, if you know what I mean.
So you're doing all this work to earn all this money to pay for it.
Yeah. So 2 years was here, as in London, and the last year was in Gloucestershire.
Because this was University of Gloucestershire.
Yeah, University of Gloucestershire, and then Cheltenham.
How long will it take you to get from London to Cheltenham?
One way is 3 hours.
3
door
hours.
to door.
So what time did you have to leave?
Really early, 5, like from Paddington. It was like 5 a.m.
Wow.
Then I would stay Monday nights there. And I remember I would stay at YMCA or like... It was like a £10 a night place. And you would not want to stay. But I think, again, these moments I really appreciate now. Like, you appreciate where you were. Like, I remember they had a pillow, but you would need witnesses to say it was a pillow. It was like very thin, and the noises, there was always a fight there.
But I guess you were kind of used to it. Nothing fazed you too much, given your experience growing up.
Still had luxury to have a single room. You know, I was at this not in a dorm even. That like I was seeing the silver lining in it. So yeah, I would stay there, and then Tuesday evening I would go back. Or
another
afternoon.
3.5 hours.
Yeah, 3.5 hours. Then Thursday I would come and go. I wouldn't stay.
So that's a 7-hour journey in one day altogether.
Yeah, 5. I would say 6 hours. 6 hours in total,
right.
In one day. So, but you get used to it. You either sleep on the train, or you got like Wi-Fi. You work, you do your work, or you study. But yeah, I did that and then graduated. And before graduating, so I got an internship like in a FTSE 250 company, and did that for a bit. And that was the moment I realized as much as I like numbers, accounting is not for me. Not again, it would have been a better choice for me financially, but I think the learning was like I made a mistake to make my mum happy.
Yeah.
I did something, became a chartered accountant or whatever part.
So you
qualified.
Just spent 3 years of your life, 30-odd thousand pounds, hours and hours traveling, doing 3 jobs to find out you don't like numbers.
Yeah, you don't.
No, I like numbers, but I didn't like accounting.
You didn't want to go into
it was
accounting.
Like the same thing with different numbers every day, and it was just like, I don't want to do this. But do I regret it? No, because it helped. It helps me even to this day. We'll get to that day-to-day job, because a lot of people don't understand finance and commercials, whereas I get it. It helps a lot. And it made me proud to make my mum, say, okay, I went to, I got a degree. I've got a decent job. So yeah, I applied for loads of jobs. And I think that was the most difficult thing in my life. I literally even printed like really quality paper. I never forget, like not a typical A4 paper, like quality, print it out, put it in an envelope, knocking on like all the accountancies. I was like, I want to...
You would literally go to their door and knock on their door.
Yeah, door to door. And hundreds of them. Like, I'm not counting the online ones. That was like a constant.
You said to us you think you probably sent out about 400 or 500 CVs.
Oh no, 100%. Yeah. And I got really... Because I was thinking quite confident, because I was like, look, in comparison to my friends at uni, I had work experience because I was older than them, because I had a 4-year gap of working and doing things. I was like, it'll be easy. Well, I didn't even get a graduate scheme, and some of them were like awful, like as in they put you through all this like 3-day of torture, exams and stuff. You win it and they're like, we're not going to pay you. I'm like, I need a job that will pay me a bit.
Yeah.
They're like, oh, it's 3 months free first, and then we'll decide whether we keep you and stuff like that. But
did you take any of those, or did you just hold out?
No, I couldn't. It was a luxury. Like I needed, even if it's like a little payment, I needed something to help me go. Then then where I was working as an analyst, so basically in the end, I did have 3 job offers. One was like a credit controller. One was, I can't remember. It's something to do with finance, but not really accounting. Then the media job that I used to do, consultants like analysis of PR, they said, do you know what? We've got a role internally as a head analyst. So you manage those analysts who work do the analysis and operation driven. So that's where I went for. I was like, do you know what? I enjoy this. Like, you get paid to read articles, and it's quite I find it a lot more interesting than accountancy. So yeah, went for it. That's how I ended up in media.
The lesson there, sometimes you may go down a certain path in life. You might invest a certain amount of time in something, but that doesn't have to define you, and you don't have to feel any regret if you then choose to go a different direction.
Yeah. I think you have to do what makes you happy.
Yeah.
And I think, especially as a job, like, you spend most of your day there, like, doing it, right? If you don't at least enjoy it, I'm not saying like be in love with everything you do, but if you don't like the core of what you do, you're like dead.
Yeah, there's no life, is there?
But yeah, I did that for a bit, and then I moved around a lot, like between agencies, even not sectors. I would say I've always been in like marketing and advertising, but it was like, initially it was like very operational, PR, public relations. Then I moved into insights, paid media. Then moved to a market research, complete like market research agency. And I was Homesick. That's all right. I jump quite a bit there, but I was
into like 2015 now.
2015.
Yeah,
so,
around that time.
But in between that time, were there any situations that you feel you really were able to learn and grow from in any of those positions?
No, 100%. In all of them, like anything I've done in life, I learn. And I think one thing I always do, and I would recommend recommend it to everyone, is always give your best. Like, even I have a rule, I only broke it once. Wherever I work, like if I accept a new job offer, unless there is something really awful, I will give it 1 year, try my best. Mm-hmm. And it's like the way of life for me is like, give your best, right? There's something not working, try to change it. If you can't change it, leave it. That's like my way of doing it, but you have to give it a chance. So let's say in the analysis side, I think I have a habit of, which is a good habit, and I would recommend it to it, like even my younger, like I see the jobs that I do as my own job. I don't see it as a way of like, it's just going to put money in my pocket.
Yeah.
And you have a gratitude, appreciation of it, coming from where I come from. Having sitting on a chair for 8 hours or 10 hours is a privilege in that sense. So I would always do my best, as in like that the analysis role, for instance, I see things not working like efficiently. It's not my job, but I would fix it. Like, I would work with the software engineers and stuff like that. Do you know what? This is going to save you 20% time.
Yeah.
So then after all of this, you get a job, you're earning money. The dream of London is happening.
Yes.
And then you want to leave.
Yes.
Why?
Well, I mean, vitamin D deficiency could be a good excuse.
There's not much sun here
it affects your happiness. That was a massive problem for me. It still is. And it affects your mood and stuff like that. But I felt homesick. I had a really good job offer. That was one thing. I was like,
in Istanbul,
like financially was amazing, and the job itself, one of the biggest agencies, market research agencies. I was like, I can't say no to this. Like, ridiculously good pay, good opportunity, and I was homesick. I know if I didn't take it, what ifs? I don't want to have that question in my mind. I was like, do you know what? Let's pack and go. We've got no kids. We can do it. Then that made me realize I've become more of a Londoner than Turkish. Like, little things started annoying me, like queuing up annoyed me. I was like, this is so British. Like, you can't, like on the train, people don't queue up. It gets on my nerves. So
this is you back in Turkey getting annoyed
back in Turkey, yeah.
Culture.
And I think another reason I did was also, like, you always feel like when I was working here, I was like, I think at a manager and a head level, like I was like, this is as far as I can get. I always felt, because you don't see people like yourself at the top, right? You're like, I'm just going to be here.
Mm.
And the problem, as much as I love London, financially it's still, you have to be very senior to have a good life. Like, things are expensive with this rent, buying a place is almost like, nowadays people, 10 years younger than me, it's a dream to do because you can't afford it.
Mhm.
Just simple as that. Unless you have rich parents, like you have some sort of backing. I was like, let's just go, because I don't, and I'm not, like, I was never happy. I think that was another reason. I was never happy with my jobs because I just felt like, I don't know, I always felt like an odd one. And I was like, there is really a glass ceiling. I can't make it. This is as high as I can get. Maybe I might move one more level. But is it worth it? Like, I'm not happy with what I do. So I was like, let's try it in Istanbul.
Are you an agency or brand that would like to work with our production company, Unity and Motion? If so, contact us at unityandmotion.com. We produce commercials and social content for brands such as Chanel, Amazon, Reebok, Harrods, The Ritz, and many more. Now back to the show.
That was an experience.
Yeah, how was the move? Like, how were things when you landed on the ground? Obviously, you said you were getting annoyed at things that weren't so London.
Yeah.
How did you start to really gain some momentum over back in Istanbul?
I think that was the moment. This is going to sound really weird. And like, I was not rich as such, but I realized money is not definitely, like, that phrase, money is not happiness.
Mm-hmm.
But it was like
You experiencing.
Yeah.
It wasn't an idea, a thought.
It was an idea. Like, I go to the office in a taxi every day. I lived in like a 3-bedroom flat in a very central area with 2 people. I ate out. Like, I could do anything I want. Like, it's much more luxury than you have here in the sense of, in the first year I bought a house, I bought a car. Like, it's unbelievable. Like, I had to be very senior to do what I did there in a year or 2 there.
What a journey, though, to go from shoes shining, selling water at the market, mechanic, you're back in Istanbul. Yeah. You bought a house,
Flexing.
Nice central area.
Yeah,
got the car, but still
not happy.
Not happy.
I think I've realized, like, having spent almost 10 years in London, like 9 years, I love London. I know it sounds weird, but I miss the food. Except the weather. I think one thing, I love London to bits. I think if you ask me now, I would say Istanbul and London my home. Like, grass looks greener from further. So that's how it felt. My wife was not happy. She was teaching. Luckily, she teaches English, so it's very easy to get a job. Then I had a job offer. Came to London. I was like, leave everything.
Again.
After like 1.5 years, 1 year.
Yeah, that's a really quick.
Yeah,
really
very quick.
You said it was quite a dark period, though.
So from Turkey, I moved here. And then the role I was in was basically, I was in charge of the commercials and the sales, all of it. Product sounded lovely on paper, but it was awful, as in it was fake people in the panel of research. And the problem is, in the UK, most of the research panels are made up of people who live through surveys. So, like,
that's how they earn.
Yeah, how they earn, how they live. That's their way of living.
Survey,
so it's like the funny, like, you pull the data in as an example, what they've done, what sites they visited for the whole month, like top sites. Top 10 sites are like 5 of them are research companies where you do surveys. The other 5 are porn sites, basically. So it's like, they're not real people. So the problem was, on a claim data, you can, on a piece of paper, you say, yeah, I bought a laptop. The guy says, I bought a laptop. He's not visited one laptop review page or anything. So it's like, you sell this product and it's very expensive. It sounds lovely when you sell it, but delivering it is a nightmare because it's not real. Anyway, and I remember one client, it's like a half project. I joined and it was halfway through. I felt really stressed because I'm never challenged normally. even if I have the biggest problem, I find a way of, you find a solution. But whereas this one, I was like, there was no solution. Either I fake the data or make up numbers. And we're like, we're going to present to the clients. And I'm like, we can't present this. They paid thousands of money. This is rubbish data. It came to a moment like I was like, you left everything from Istanbul. You came here. I'm going to embarrass myself, like the pride, proudness. So yeah, there was one moment where I was like, trying to not breathe. And I was like, I laugh at it now, but it's very sad actually. Like I was like, maybe I throw myself under the car and get hit in the hospital so I don't have to go to the presentation. That's how I felt. Bad I felt, like very stressed, because you moved and it's like my family is like, don't leave this job. It's really good. Like you're like, no, I can't. I'm going to go back. This is a really good opportunity as well.
So you were pushed to the point of just wanting to end your life?
Yeah, in a way, because I can't. And looking back, I'm like, such a ridiculous thing. But it was like, I'm a failure. Like I made the biggest mistake in my life. I left a very financially really good job, good career as well, like good opportunity to grow, and to a shithole. My French.
To being left in a terrible situation with a terrible product.
Yeah. And when you think about it, it's like, when I look back, I'm like, if it's just a product. But again, learning is like, it's just a job, right? As in,
was there another factor that you'd left London because you weren't enjoying it to go back to Turkey? You were homesick. You go to Turkey and you're not enjoying it there. You come back to London thinking, okay, you'll be happy there, and you're not. And you're
because of a job. And it
job.
affects you. Like I don't know. I think I was I was depressed, and because of my culture, but it's something that I'm still facing. Like I've never seen a therapist in my life. It's like I grew up in a place where it's like a taboo to. They call you crazy if you see a therapist. Like it sounds awful, but you're like a dead person. You're like talking to someone, or you're in an environment. Let's say we're chatting with a group of friends, but you're physically there, but your mind, nothing is there. Like I constantly think about the work. What am I going to do? Why did I do that? Like it's all.
How is that to deal
you're like
with?
soulless. You're like, my wife used to say, like, you're here, like you constantly, like, and I didn't know. I used to talk to my wife. That was the only good thing I could open up to her. Like, but I should have, like, if I could go back, I would see a therapist or someone, because looking back, I just think it's ridiculous. It was just a bloody job. And I know, the thing that really bothers me, it's not like I've come from nothing, and I know I can do up again, but I think it's the being a failure feeling that's always like on my shoulders. Like I don't want to embarrass my parents. I don't want to be that person that just failed.
So what would you say to someone who was in feeling the same way you were, in that kind of really dark place, stressed at work, can't really get their head out of work? What would you say to them? How would you help them deal with it?
I think reach out. Like that was my biggest mistake, as in I didn't actually talk to anyone at work. Like I didn't go to them, and because I was in charge of it, and I started talking like the managers and stuff and the head of products, and like this we can't fix it. That's the issue I had. But in hindsight, I think I should have talked to people at work and externally. Because I just feel like talking is the first step, right? You almost acknowledging there is a problem versus crying about. I think everyone should cry. This sounds really weird. It helps every now and then to cry, like get it out of the system. But what it really taught me was, and I use this to this day. Like, there's a worry at work, let's say, it sticks to my mind all day. Like there's a problem basically.
Yeah.
And all I do, like when it gets into my mind in the evening, I say, can I do anything about it now? Like, I'm like, what did I do? Okay, I emailed that person, I did this, found this. There is not much I can do. Like, it's one of those things, you've done everything you can, but you still worry about it. I read a book to my son, Ruby's Worry. And I love it. Like, no one read me these books when I was younger, but it's like this little girl, she has a worry. She keeps ignoring it, ignoring it, like thinking about it. It gets bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger. Then she talks to people that, like, she finds someone that has a problem, similar balloon, like an invisible balloon type of thing. And then it bursts. She starts talking about it, gets smaller, 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 vanishes. And I think talking, like, I think that was my main issue. Even with my wife, I wasn't 100% honest because I was just, again, felt embarrassed. And it sounds weird. Like, I came from a very stereotypical background that I have to provide. Not that my wife doesn't work and stuff, but I have to be responsible for making sure there's food at the table, regardless of what it is.
Because you know what it's like not to have that. You know the comparison and how tough it can be.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
That's the thing. It's like you left everything suddenly. Like, do you know what? F it, we'll just leave. Then to come to this, and I had really high hopes. I was like, product sounds really wicked, like future facing, digital. You know, like it was really cool.
But it didn't live up to
No.
that.
The biggest worry I had there was, this was the first time where I broke my rule. I won't stay there for a year because it was something that I cannot fix.
I mean, it pushed you to suicidal thoughts. So
Yeah, suicidal thoughts.
that's a definite reason to leave a job.
To leave. Yeah. It's and it wasn't the annoying thing was it wasn't necessarily like I had a bad manager as such. It was more what I was in charge of was such a faulty thing that there is no way to fix it. And after I get to it, after I left it, after 3 to 6 months, they shut it down completely. Then they spend double-digit millions on it.
Wow.
That's how big it was.
Wow.
And
so what happens next? This is the beginning of the OMG story.
Yeah,
Involved in
OMG
that
said,
family.
That was, I think, like, I'm sort of mixed, and I told like my background. And then my wife is mixed from a different continent. Like, she's Singaporean but lived in US and here in Singapore, and ethnically very mixed. And I had a thought, like, I never felt fully satisfied in the jobs I've done. I liked some of them, but I never felt like I was represented in the work I did. I felt like there was a massive issue in the way market research, media, and advertising as a whole. Then this job came up, and it was for this division called, I hate the word, ethnic. OMG Ethnic. So they do multicultural marketing. And in my experience, or even if you talk to anyone from a media agency background, they'll be like, that's the most traditional, in a bad way, old school way of marketing. Like, you don't want to go into that. Like, if you say to someone, I'm going to leave my digital future-facing career to go on and do multicultural marketing, people will call, and my friends called me crazy. They're like, do not do it.
Grey Matter's new business tip for today. Always be qualifying. Set up a set of qualifying questions to ensure time is not wasted on pointless proposals. BANT is always a great formula to follow. Do they have the budget for the project? Does the prospect have the authority to sign off? Is there actually a need? And what are the timescales? Grey Matters is a straight-talking business development consultancy that empowers agencies to position, market, and sell themselves for new business success.
So your friends are saying, you're crazy, don't do it, don't do it. What do you do?
I went for it.
Why?
Because, like I said, I never felt 100% satisfied in my jobs. Even now, I never 100%. Okay, I wasn't mostly satisfied with the jobs I've done. It was like, nice job, I like what I do. But there were moments I'm like, come on, I'm part of your audience. I bloody buy your product. But like, even if I think, media is like, it's all about reach and frequency. You either don't reach me or not at the same frequency as everyone else. You're ignoring me, like, for, like, I don't just eat kebab. I'm like, British people, like, British people eat more kebab than I do, although I'm from Turkey. You know, like that's the perception. It's like, oh, you're Turkish, so you eat kebab every day. I'm like, nah, we don't eat kebabs. Or like that perception, you know, like, oh, you're South Asian. Oh, here's a 10 kilos of rice. Let's advertise it. Versus saying, actually, we eat tomatoes too. You know, I have a joke in the team, like, we eat tomatoes. And I tell this to clients as well. Like, the issue was like that the team was set up for, I think, 7 years. It was still one person, two people, just another person joined. So it was that person left, basically. It was, with me, it was going to be 2 people.
So this whole department is 2 people.
It's 2 people at this moment in time.
And wherever I talk to, like, do not go. And even the name ethnic, again, another driver for me, because I felt nothing should be called ethnic. I find the term very annoying, like ethnic people. I don't know what that means. Like, you could say white British is an ethnicity, ethnic, or like, but somehow we called ethnic people. And I hate that term. And I felt like the marketing that you've done when you do especially multicultural marketing, the work is like representative of what I call like my aunties and uncles. It's got nothing to do with me. Like, but with the stereotyping, because I'm a first gen as well, I think people, you know, see me as the guy working in the corner shop and eat only Turkish food and watch only Turkish TV. Does, you know, that's the perception, especially if you're a first year. That's where they group in it, or they don't think about anything else. Like, you have a specific product, let's advertise. Otherwise, just ignore them. I was like, you know what? I'll give it a go. Like, there is effort. What have I got to lose? Like, I had interviews about this. A lot of agencies have them this month. It's not a new thing. But I felt even my previous agencies have them, but it was a tick box exercise. Like, you got a brief, or bring that brown person in, or black person in, or it was more like, it's Diwali, or it's Eid. You know, like, it was very tick boxy versus very impactful.
Yeah.
But this one, and then that was one of my questions to my boss as well. I was like, is this a tick? Like, if you want me to come and be the PR person, I don't want this job. But if I want to make money out of this, like, create something. They were like, no, absolutely. We want this to be commercial. We want to make like hundreds and millions and, you know, make money from this. I was like, yeah, let's go for it. It was, again, completely something new in this. I've never done multicultural marketing before.
So this is like September 2016. You get this role.
Yeah.
What's the journey been like since then?
Yeah. What was the ascent?
One roller coaster.
What were the different roles you took from that point onwards, moving up within
OMG?
Yeah.
So I stayed in the same thing, but then I was a director, then become a managing partner, managing director. So I run the whole thing with my team now. In the beginning, I regretted, because there were a lot of barriers, right? People are like, oh, ethnic media. Like, I don't have any products. So I'm like, oh, like, you like constantly trying to break down barriers or ways of thinking. But you can do it. I think it's like, if you want to achieve something, you can do it. Like, in this job, in the beginnings, I had a lot of doubts as well. I was like, shit, what did I do? What am I to change, you know, do these things? It's like, it's been going on like this for years. Who am I? Like, what do you think? And there was a, you know, sad period in my life where we had a miscarriage, and it was very dark sides. Like, I was just
to deal with.
Yeah.
It was nightmare, because it was just, you're just trying to come out of depression, trying to feel fresh about a new job. And, you know, we've been married for years, and it was like, it just happened, and we're like happy, but then it didn't work. I cried for days. I never, ever in my life cried as much, even with my brother's stuff. It was just like, but I still had to go to work. Not had to, I went. But again, going back to it, I'm sure if I talked to my manager and said, I need time off, I could have taken the time off. But in my mindset, I'm like, it's a new job. And I went, like, I have not slept for a week, you know, like it took.
How did you do that? You're going into work, you've been crying all night, you haven't slept. How did you function?
You function like coffee and stuff, and you don't actually function. You're like a dead. Your brain doesn't function,
Do
right?
people notice?
I don't know. I don't know whether people noticed. But the work was busy as well. I guess I tried to use that as an excuse to forget things. Like, because at home, all I did, it just reminded me of the situation. I mean, luckily, I would say like after a week or so, I tried to, you learn to live with it. Almost like not forget it. It takes a long time to forget. But then the idea of like all this work, like you're doing things that you've never done, which excited me a lot. But the selling of the product was really difficult. Like people just ignore you because they're like, oh, this old school, you know, I don't have rice, go. That type, you know, that mindset.
Just going back on, like, for anybody who's watching or listening who's gone through a miscarriage, what's your advice, or maybe currently, what's your advice to them on how to deal with that?
Talk to people. I think I keep going back to it, and I'm really rubbish at it. I'm getting better and better. Talk and be open. And I think even at work, that's what I do. Like, I talk about my problem. I, like, try to be vulnerable. It's bloody fine. Like, and I think if someone doesn't understand that, I don't know, you had a miscarriage or something really bad happened to you, and you may not operate the way you operate, or you need some time off. If someone doesn't give it, leave that place anyways. I don't think that place will do any good to you in any form of shape.
So fast forward up to 2020. You joined when there was just one person, became two of you. I don't know how much the company was, or the department was making then, but tell us about the growth between then and 2020.
Yeah, it was 2016, I think. September I joined.
Yep.
Yeah, 2016.
Do you know what? I had doubts, and I said, do you know what, Serhat? For 2-3 months, I was like, this is too much for me. I can't do this. Like, I can't change it. But then I was like, do you know what? Let me give it my best. Try it. Like, there's no point of crying about it. Like, I cried as in that sense for 2-3 months. I was like, oh, no. But I was like, let's give it our best. If it doesn't work, it doesn't work. At least I can say I tried. So I would say I put my head, heart, everything, like literally sweat into it because I wanted to work. And it worked. So slowly by slowly, it was very difficult, but we started changing perceptions of clients. And the beauty of it is once you do it for one client, they realize from a media perspective, like their awareness increases, their sales increase, like, you know, soft and hard metrics, like it delivers. They're like, bloody hell, this works. And just as an FA, you know, every marketeer is after keep my current customers, get new customers. That's like the core of any annual or any brief in a way. And you deliver that to them. It's a new audience. Like, you're missing this opportunity. And it started building. So we had, like, in year one, I think we had, probably too confidential, I won't tell the numbers. So we had 200% growth from when I joined. The after that, doubled that number. Then after that, I think another 200%. Then another 200%.
This is huge growth.
So we went from a low 6-digit, very low lowest 6-digit to 7-digit numbers. And for a division where initially, you know, when I joined, I always had the thought like, this is never going to make $1 million. We made it. Team grew to 22 last year. Although it's smaller today, but operationally, we built the most efficient team. We went from having like 2 clients to 50 clients.
Wow.
Fastest growing in OMG in terms of specialist, most efficient, profitable. Because multicultural has always been like an unprofitable media type of thing, and we expanded from multicultural to LGBTQ and disability.
So just to recap though, you joined when it's just one person and thinking,
7 years.
I don't know how we're going to do this. We're never going to make $1 million. And yet you become the most profitable, efficient department in OMG, which is a huge organization turning over billions.
Really, yeah. But it was, again, it was teamwork. It was just not I had the vision, like I couldn't do it, especially like Josh, who's my legend in my team. He's like my Arms and Legs, who I mentioned. He was in the team before I joined as well, but it was just, we became like, I couldn't do it without him. He helped a lot. Like, although he was there when I joined, I couldn't not do it even afterwards. But it was like you know how I said challenges makes me more driven. That's what I felt with this job. Like, every door, you knock on, you try to explain to them, you're not talking to this audience. You need to do something better. They don't do it. I get annoyed and I push it more. I'm like, okay, you don't do it. I'm gonna, you keep knocking doors. But it was like, as a joke, I have a team, like a joke in this team. We used to be what I call beggars. We're now choosers. In the beginning, because I was like, at the end of the day, we're a business there to make money. There, you need to have a purpose in what you do. But the core part of OMG or any corporate business is to make money.
Yeah.
And if you're not making money, no one is going to take us seriously. And we weren't being taken seriously because we're the smallest, and we're like the nice ethnic guys that you can call out, and they do some celebration of Chinese New Year, and Lunar New Year, and
everyone feels good about themselves. And
I was like, no, I want this to be commercial. I want you to take this seriously for commercial reasons. Because brands, like, you can't just go to them and say, you need to do this for moral reasons. This is not changing the world. But I was like, by doing what we do, we invest in minority-owned businesses. Like last year, we spent 15 million with them. That's no other network does it. And I'm bloody proud of it. If
what do you mean by that, for those who don't understand?
15 million media spend. So let's say we might work with specific channels that are for Black communities or Eastern European, or it could be TV channels, could be British Muslim TV, could be The Voice or Galdem, and like media outlets that are specifically for certain communities.
Yeah.
Because I think the logic behind what I wanted to do was, I always wanted to have something. Like, I can never work for a charity. It sounds really weird. As in work, I could do a lot of stuff for charity, as in volunteering, but I know I couldn't work in a charity. And this job almost gives me the feel-good factor. Like, I joke about it, but it's more than just selling chocolate through advertising or manipulating people to buy something. There's a little bit of a good feeling factor.
There's purpose behind it.
There's a purpose, and the purpose is, we put money back into minority-owned or targeted businesses. By doing what we do, people like me or I get a job. Like I said, going from 2 to 22.
Yeah, we've met your team as well.
You have, right?
As I said in the poem, it represents the world. It's very multicultural.
And I love it. And I honestly, because especially for people like us, that where you've always been the odd one out in a room, to have a team like that, you just feel like we are all from different ethnicities and sexuality and like different religions and things, but I would say all brothers and sisters. Like, we get each other, and it's really, that feeling is amazing. And I think I would say that's one of the reasons why I've stayed in this company for 7 years, because I believe in it, and I want to build an agency, and have built, that is done in an opposite way, where marginalized communities become the heart of it. Then we build the majority onto it. What's funny is, like, when you think about London, where most brands makes their money, 55% are non-white British, or Birmingham or Manchester, like the areas where most brands make their money, are very diverse.
The majority are not white British.
Yeah, in London, yeah. I mean, people of color, about 40%, but then you've got the other white category, which things like Polish or Eastern Europe, Romanians make the majority. If you add them all up, it's 55%. Yet, if you work in an agency, most agencies do not represent that at all. Even if they do, it's at a very junior level.
And most of the work going out is not.
It's not. It's just, it's not just about putting someone, people of color on an ad or creative. It's like the context that you put there and how you make that as well, like from a creative perspective or production. It's like the props that you use and things, even the makeup, what they wear. You need something. And I always believed in and I still believe in it, and I think it's a fact as well, because it's a minority culture. Unless you're from that culture, you'll never truly get it. But you won't know these details, or like what Ramadan, you know, if you talk to someone what Ramadan is, they'll say, oh, you fast during Ramadan. Like, oh, you don't eat. I'm like, it's just, that's like, yes, big part of it, but it's not the Ramadan. Like, it's, if I have to think about it, would be the, not last thing, it's big part of it, but it's got nothing to do with Ramadan in a way. Like, there's a lot more to that. It's about helping people. The charity, the contribution, like money that you give to charities, or doing good to people throughout, like you do your best during Ramadan to help people, like anyone, even on the tube, you do like extra steps to help. It's like part of it. It's that spiritual feeling. But people don't, you won't know the details of like what you do when you break fast unless you meet people from that culture. And I think that's where where brands make mistakes, when you don't, when you know, in an agency, you call, let me call that brown person there. Is this said okay? But it's I don't know. I'm not black. But you know, you're BAME, you're, you know, you're aren't you people of color? You're all the same. Or you need that in-depth knowledge of people, and that's what we do with Unite. And I feel proud of what we built, because, and I even tell my boss, like, I actually, when I joined, I did say we'll never make $1 million in this company. We made it last 2 years, bang on. My learning is put your doubt to the side. I think doubts always limits our capability. But like, I love what I do, and it helps me even when I educate people who are not educated in this area. It makes me feel good. Like, I'm like, oh, you know, I helped that person think of Muslims or different audiences in a positive way, which they had a negative stereotype because of maybe some idiots told them, or you know what I mean? It makes me feel good. Or when I invest money back into the community, it makes me feel good. Or if I recruit people like me, I'm like, these people usually, although these days it's different, they are in demand. When I started, it was more like these. I've got a lot of friends who are brilliant. They can't get a job because there is a systemic issues across many sectors. It's changing. But when I started, but I felt good. Like, I'm giving job opportunities. We're creating opportunities. Like, these guys are now feel home, feel normal in a place, and they get jobs. Do you get what I mean? Like, it's like that's what I mean by it's more than selling chocolate.
So you think now that, okay, things are great, plain sailing, but we do have 2020 and we do have a lockdown across the whole country. And tell us about that experience, because that was very challenging.
Yeah, we heard you hit a burnout point within this time.
Yes. So as I said, my wife is a lecturer, so she teaches. And we had our 2.5-year-old Zafar. He's now 4.5, my first son. Another one on the way. And it was, especially with the lockdown, so we had, like any other agencies, like a lot of problems. Like, a lot of brands wanted to cancel things, stop their spend, and we're a specialist as well, which means we're not the core of what they spend. So a lot of, and during crisis, usually you focus on the core, keep the core. Anything that's an add-on, you try to remove. So
you're facing huge revenue losses.
Exactly, huge revenue losses. Then at the same time, obviously, government was our client as well.
So you got a lot of pressure on you to deliver in a crisis. Revenues are losing. You're having to work from home. You've got a child. Was your wife pregnant?
Wife pregnant, yeah, as well.
So all of this going on, and how did that impact you mentally and physically and emotionally?
I lost it. Like, I think that was the time where I felt, you know, the first one I told about the other job, it was more like a depression and stuff. But this one was more like, I can't handle this anymore. And then George Floyd incident happened, right? And it's like, I'm not black, but it does bring a lot of memories of myself from being the different guy in Turkey as well. Like, and because of what we do, and I was asked to help out a lot in that space. And it came to a moment because it's really draining, right? People, you talk to people, it's like, oh, it's unintentional racism. I'm like, no, it's racism. You don't call it unintentional. And it's like, some people, you know, you're on a very different spectrum of how they see things. And it's like, I get you'll get black colleagues to talk, but I'm like, no, but it's not, that's not how it works. You don't just go on and ask them. Like, this is, you know, it reminds me of traumas and, you know, like trying to explain to people, it was like very, trying to do millions of things on top of this and family. I lost it. I even cried to my team. That's, you know, more seniors than Josh, who's still there. I cried and I was like, I can't do this.
So what happened? You walked in, you
on a video chat, on a Zoom.
And
I'm losing it, guys. Like, I'm at a point, I'm just going to resign. Because I can't, my mental, I am losing it. Because I think I thought I had very thick skin. But, you know, it's all these things from DNI stuff that you're trying to do around George Floyd and stuff. And trying to manage, like, I was like the middleman, if you know what I mean, between people who don't get it. You have to explain to them what we need to do, and people who've experienced things. But they are, you know, people don't want to come out and talk about it. Like, it's a hard topic, either for personal reasons, or sometimes it's like, I don't want people to know X, Y, Z. Or like, you know, some of the races, like, you know, we opened the safe space and people started sending messages, not necessarily things that happened to them in this company or where I work. Some of them are like, it makes you very tense, like emotionally, what happened to them, what some companies did to them, like from calling them, it's just like a lot of racist things, if you know what I mean. Like, because it was such a high thing, everyone came out in a way, which was good. But I didn't know how to handle it either. And then I've got a kid at home, 2.5 years old, like, you know, terrible twos. They call it terrible twos for a reason. Running about, like, you put the TV on, but there's only so much you can do.
And your office is your child's bedroom.
Yeah, again, I didn't have an office room, so I was on a bin bag, in his bin bag as well, not an adult size bin bag. The corner is very uncomfortable, and at some point I moved to the attic, which is not supposed to be habitable, but I was like, bored it, at least I can have some face there. Then internet wasn't working. It's like everything was coming at once, and you lose energy. Like, I wouldn't say I was suicidal, but I felt like, I can't do this. I am losing it. My brain is not taking it in anymore.
So you make a step that you've never done before at this point, and you did talk. And you spoke to
my colleagues.
Your colleagues.
Yeah.
And you released, and you cried in front of them on a Zoom.
Yeah. And those guys are genius to me. Like, but they were very supportive. No, they were like, do not leave. Like, you can't leave. And they got worried in a way because they're like, no, you can't leave. And I was trying to almost, in my head, making an exit plan. I'm going to be like, you're going to do this. This is what I'm going to tell them. And
what happens?
I take deep breaths. I just said, I talked to my wife as well. I was like, I don't know what to do. Like, I'm losing it. Then I started putting a little bit of routine in my life. I was not doing exercising. I was not even going to a park. Like, I was just like constantly working, but my productivity was really bad because.
I mean, if you're working till 1 a.m. and.
Yeah.
You know,
I fell asleep on a laptop. Like, my head just. I never.
So you woke up before. And you were asleep on a laptop.
Yeah. No, it's like my neck is hurting. I started taking walk and taking deep breaths. I think that's like every time I'm like frustrated, just leave, take a deep breath, come back. Then I did a really crazy thing in my life I've never done. I had a paternity leave about 3 weeks. Then my second son was born during December. So and our office is closed for Christmas as well. Then I did a lot of holidays on it. Basically, long story short, almost for 2 months.
2 months off.
Yeah,
which you've never done before.
Yeah, never done before. And normally, because of the size of the team as well, I always had to check emails and stuff, like respond or do bits, like we own projects. I said, guys, I am switching off. I'm not looking at my laptops unless you call me. This is what you do while I'm away. This is like completely full trust in the team. You do the thing. And they did it. And it taught me a lot. Like,
what did you learn?
Delegation. And I think sometimes even as leaders, right, we end up doing things ourselves. Like,
because it feels like I'll be quicker to do it myself, or I'll get it right if I do it myself.
Yeah, exactly. I'll do it quicker. It'll take time to teach them. Or you say like, it's too much of a problem to deal with this client. Let me throw myself in there. But in reality, you're making the biggest mistake, because by you doing that, your team is not learning.
Taking an opportunity away from them.
Yeah, I think it's an opportunity. Yeah, I mean, situations still create an opportunity to learn. So it helped me to mature up as a leader and let them do their own thing. Like they do, again, I am like, I said, I'm very opinionated. I do things in a certain way. Like I specifically let people do it their way. Whereas previously I would say, no. Here's a deck as an example presentation. Do this. No. I let them do it their way. Like, a few of them, like they delivered brilliantly. Client feedback is great. Where I actually thought this is not the way I would present in my head, but I never told them this. But it shows you there's no one right way, right? Especially with what we do. Everyone's got their own way, and I do believe in it. And that's what I meant by, in other places, I felt like I was trying to be someone else, and you suppress yourself. Like imagine the amount of effort you have to put psychologically to try to speak in a certain way. It takes from your thinking. And I always give the analogy of, if you were in a relationship with your partner, right? If you were trying to be someone else, that relationship will never ever work, right? It will break at some point. And if you take it back to the work, you spend more time at work, technically, if you exclude the sleeping time, at work in a way than you do with your partner. And if you try to be someone else there, that is like the worst thing to do, right? You're like, but a lot of people of color do that as well. And I think marginalized communities, because you want to fit in. But I think you need to be yourself. That's why, like, regardless of and I think that's not just to do with the diversity spectrum of like ethnic minority or this. As a person, regardless of your race and stuff, you just need to, it's cliche to say, but be authentic.
Be your authentic self.
Because you perform the best, and that's what I've performed the best in this. Even in other roles, I got a lot of promotion, a lot of success. But I felt the best in this role because I put all the baggage aside. Like, this is who I am. Take it or leave it. And I just act the way I would act with my friend. You know what I mean? There's no second me. I feel comfortable.
So part of what you said there has become a bit of a theme that we've begun to see, that by leaving or taking a proper break, you can go back with a new energy and a new perspective.
Yeah.
And this has been shared to us by a few people across this podcast series. So I think there's a lesson definitely in there, that it is important, if you can, to take a break away, to renew your perspective, because especially through the things that we've all been through. I remember lockdown as well. Charles and I, when we were setting up Unify, there was like weeks of intense calls, like literally you have half an hour for lunch. That's it. We're on Zoom back to back to back. I remember the first time we spoke to you was like 5:30 on a Friday evening. I remember that. It was a great conversation, but I remember that, and it was very intense. And you did have to look for, how can you give yourself a break? Because otherwise you'd wake up, the laptop's there, it might be 8:30, you open it, and then, who knows when you're going to shut it again.
You like lose it, right? It's that's, I think that during the COVID, that was the biggest challenge. It's like, where did the time go? And I was like, lunch? What lunch? I was just like, just grab something. And it was like, with the new way of working, it was like constant meetings. Being in a meeting, like video calls as well for like 10 hours, is draining.
I think there's a great thing that you've brought back from your time off on a personal side that you still do now. Tell us about your children and story time.
Oh, yes. I've always been ambitious, right? And I guess it's the disadvantages I had when I was younger. So I was like, I need to be there, like be successful for my parents as well, like to make them proud. But that 2 months in particular, one thing that it reminded me of was, so what? Like, yes, I'm now senior, but if I don't spend time with my kids, if I don't see my family, I don't want them to remember me as the dad who always worked. Like, that's what they're going to remember. They're not going to think of me as the dad who bought the
Became
house.
MD. And
the managing director.
So I made a promise. Like, I think kids taught me being more productive and efficient. Like, so I made a rule to myself. Like I said, look, bedtime in particular, like during COVID, I had to skip a lot of them with Zafer, our first one, and it really bothered me.
Mhm.
Like, it's just like, this work, but I don't have the time to do, so I prioritize work. But taking that break and reconnecting, especially, with a newborn as well as Zafer, it was like this is my like religious rule almost, from 6:30 to 9. Even if, unless someone's dying, which in most cases in our line of work never happens, I am doing bedtime. I'm doing my son's bath time. We read stories together, then we listen to stories as well. We sleep, he falls asleep, I come down. Family will always be there. And in any job that you work, even if you're the founder, if you're XYZ, you're always replaceable. But family is not. I had a lot of reflection during that 2 months. And I changed my way. I'm much happier in terms of what we do, how I operate. And I think my team is happy as well, because I give them a lot more responsibility, a lot more. They learn a lot more. And I'm there not to poke and stuff. Like I grew as a leader where they trust me, or they come to me themselves if they have an issue. So what should I do on this? Or we have this problem, can we fix it? How? And another thing, let's say this year I took as my parents are getting very old, like 70 plus, and I said, I used to go to Turkey once or twice a year. I was like, I'm gonna change this, because my dad fell ill, and it again made me realize, they touch wood, they might pass away, and I'm gonna be like, I'm gonna kill myself not seeing them as often. So now I go every 2 months, every 3 months. It's a must. Like, it's not a choice. There is always something to do at work. I can, take out my to-do list. There will be millions of things. But I think you have to take family and friends first. Not to say you ignore the work. And there will be times where you have to sprint, sometimes. But if it becomes a normality that you're constantly missing your kids' bedtime, or you're constantly missing things to do with family, your weekends and everything, then that is not healthy. It's not sustainable. You will blow at some point.
I think that's great advice and a great example there for people who are driven, want to be successful, want to achieve, whether that's in business or their career, that you've got to remember the things that do really matter and get things in balance, and think about, at your funeral, they're not going to say, yeah, he increased the company by 200% in year 1, and then year 2 they doubled that, and it's going to be, how he was as a father. Oh, he was never there, but he loved us. Or they're going to say, he worked hard, he provided, and he was there for us. He always made sure he's there for bedtime. They will say that, Let's summarize. We like to do a little summary of your life after. So I'll hand the floor to Ash to summarize the lessons from Serhat's life.
I think that you can learn a lot from life through following different paths and not being rigid to thinking, I'm going to sit here, I'm going to ascend here. I think the amount of things you've done and where you've come from is a really strong testament to, it doesn't matter where you come from. It matters how you apply yourself. And that will show everyone and show yourself how much you're capable of.
I think the example of determination, like how far determination can get you from making those trips up to 3 hours and back to sleeping 10 pounds at a YMCA with a questionable pillow and just making it work, you know, and then facing the challenges of just life challenges where life hits you and you go, is this it? Is this what it's all about? I don't even enjoy what I'm doing. Okay, I'll go to Turkey. I'm not enjoying it here either. And just dealing with those, what seem like enormous life problems, and just keep pushing, keep going, and finding ways to motivate yourself. And you've done it. You've put the work in, stayed determined, and the results prove themselves. And what a great upbringing from your parents as well, teaching the values they taught you about hard work, about respect and morals, and them just showing you how they showed love by sacrificing so much, has helped shape you to who you are today and doing the great work that you do with OMG Unite. And I think it's just a great example of how far determination and a great set of values can get you in life.
Most definitely.
100%, I think. But I think, but one thing I also always say, like, apart from those, like, managers in your job makes like, you can be in a very rubbish company and have a brilliant manager, and you'll have the best time of your life. And it could be the opposite, the best company with the worst manager. I think that is very important as well. Like, I had really good managers and I had really bad managers. And I think that's one of the advice I would also give, like, to people who think about the managers, not just like, I'm going to get a 10K more here, I'm going to get this. Buy into the people, because it would change your life. And the same goes with friends as well. Like, you know, your real friends become a parent, or you test them during the bad times. But yeah, this was wicked, man. I really enjoyed it.
Thank you for coming.
Yes, thank you for coming.
Thank you for sharing the story of how you became Serhat. What a journey.
Thank you.
All right.